Hi there, this is a follow-up video I didn't plan on making to my big 90-minute report on how in House of the Dragon we are starting to suspect the major character Nettles may have been cut and her story merged with Rhaena. Due to the absence of Nettles casting news, though if she does come it might be in the Season 3 premiere, but then on top of that this other leak that Rhaena will claim a dragon. And I realized I stressed so much you have to consider this as a real possibility, because people don't want it to be true, that I may have crushed all hope. So I'm making this follow-up video to, in the other direction, reading through, I got like 300 comments on that video. I haven't had that in years, that number of comments. Just, I'm making this video to say all hope is not lost. We can't 100% disprove that Nettles is in House of the Dragon. I just wanted this to be a wake-up call that people need to pay attention to this, and this is top priority, looking for any scrap of news about it. Because we had such problems before on Game of Thrones, when Benioff and Weiss were making crazy changes, and we would get leaks about them in advance, but we were met with outright denial, and I was guilty of this. I refused to believe they could really do something that crazy, so I dismissed advanced reports about the Sansa rape and stuff, and just imagine if we had been on the ball, didn't have blind faith in these con men, and actually reacted to things as soon as they came out. Now, another reason I'm making this is the original report was just a tweet by major veteran spy reporter analyst channel Wake the Dragon. Made this tweet saying, Rhaena in the Vale claims a wild dragon that is eating sheep. And the way she said that there are things I can't and won't talk about that since my last video, Wake the Dragon told me some stuff in private. I am not going to share those. I'm going to respect that she said keep this private. I will remark on that she did make a follow-up tweet to her first one where she tried to clarify what she meant about that when I said that, I actually chose my words very carefully, and I said, just the miscommunication, I don't think people understood that you needed to say this the first time. So I'm only going by what she clarified in a public tweet, that she said, I chose my words carefully, and at no point did any of my sources use the name sheep stealer. In terms of, on the scripts or labeled props, sometimes props for scenes get labeled for that. No source actually called it by the name sheep stealer. So she said I was very specific that I wanted to just descriptively say Rhaena finds a wild dragon in the Vale that is eating sheep. And there's a lot of sheep props and stuff apparently. And I said, well, like, people read into that they thought you were being coy, like, she finds a certain sheep-eating dragon. No, I meant that literally, that I don't know what its name is. Well, you should have said that, but just tweets are limiting. That's why I'm reporting on YouTube, not through Twitter. But I still respect Wake the Dragon. Pretty much all my major leaks have come through her or through people she vetted. But the key point is they never outright called this dragon sheep stealer in this alleged leak. And there's actually multiple sources, and there's other stuff she told me I won't go into, that she said, I think this leans toward that. And I went, well, you could interpret it another way, and some things were conflicting. I'm not going to talk about that because it was in private, but just publicly, they never actually called it sheep stealer, and she was very specific about that. And, here I am, I told her, well, they all eat sheep. It's a joke in the books. Martin is referring to the myth of St. George and the Dragon, where they sacrifice sheep to it every day, and then they run out of sheep and start sacrificing a maiden. That they have a taste for mutton is sort of a joke. They'll eat any meat, but they prefer sheep. It is a thing in the books, so it's not exactly the description, it's eating a flock of sheep. Not, she's leaving a killed one out for it every day to earn its trust. That's what Sheep Stealer doesn't. With Nettles in the book, that isn't really what she's describing. So either it's only a very loose merging of this, or it doesn't really sound like, in her own words, Wake the Dragon said, well, the implication to me was I'm 99% sure it is Sheep Stealer, and I said, looking at the same evidence you showed me, I'm like 50 to 60% now. I'm making up percentages. I used to think, oh, 90% this is sheep stealer, and now I'm kind of half and half. And the official answer is I don't know, and this is a warning urging people assume nothing, pay attention to all further leaks. For good or ill. That just, the one line is, to clarify, we don't know if this is sheep stealer, or if it's just a dragon that happens to be eating sheep. And I'll go through the variations on this. The point of this video, as a follow-up to the other 90-minute one, we in the analysis community, we are up against outright denial. Look at some of the reactions in Heatwake the Dragon got, which were totally unfair because they didn't even try to provide counter-evidence. Like so many who were just shouting, they wouldn't cut Sheep Stealer and Nettles. They wouldn't cut Nettles, she's too important. Isn't an argument based on evidence. Now you can cite other evidence and disagree with her, but like we think we saw spy photos of, I think they were stunt doubles for Nettles at the claiming of the dragon seeds and everything. Maybe. And if you point to that as evidence, that's good. It's just, I don't want them to cut Nettles is something that we as a fandom, and I've said this before, our news analysis capacity, our fan infrastructure was gutted from Season 5 onward, where we had brain drain, where a lot of serious news outlets stopped covering the show, the ones based on evidence. And by removing that conservative ballast, all that happened was we were left with people who, not everyone, I'm not trying to criticize, but people who just have entertaining theories, and I want my theory about time-traveling Bran being the Night King to be true, or Littlefinger wasn't dead, he's really a faceless man, it faked his death. There's no evidence for that. What are you wish listing? And more so than other fandoms, this is still a lingering problem. We're starting to break people of it because House of the Dragon isn't a show that lends itself to wild theorization, because we kind of know how it ends as an outline. Well, there's specific things we think they're moving around, but it's not the same level of mass speculation that isn't based on cited evidence. So that whole mindset needs to change, but we are fighting an entrenched culture of wish listing and denial, and we're trying to steer it, well, break it in the sense of breaking a horse and getting a bit in its mouth. We will force this fandom back into being evidence-based, though it will take years. Bend it back into that the right way. That so many people were in denial. That's why in the first video and in Wake the Dragon's reports we had to stress this is a real possibility. That these days you have to hit people over the head with a sledgehammer to get them to pay attention. So if we just said, we kind of haven't seen Nettles yet, there was speculation they may have merged, even from Season 1, where we actually now think those were setup scenes where they go, oh, Rhaena, you will claim a dragon somehow. There was just, speculation based on that, but to get people to take it seriously, you have to really emphasize it, because if you put in qualifiers or go halfway, well, we're not 100% sure, they don't refer to it by name, there's other options, people will believe what they want to believe. So I hope that was a wake-up call, but now I feel bad that I do believe in hope. I'm a guy who thinks Winds of Winter is going to come out. That the other thing which I did stress in my video is I don't want them to cut Nettles. Like, even me, my best case scenario is expand Nettles to give her more to do to smooth out her story, rather than condensing it with another character. That is what I'd like them to do, but we're fighting against the mentality of they couldn't possibly have cut Nettles because that's stupid. And it just reminds me so much of the mentality we had of they can't be marrying Sansa to Ramsay Bolton. You must hate Sansa to be reporting that. Like, people accused Wake the Dragon of, you must hate Nettles, and she's like, I don't hate Nettles, I'm reporting on this, and I'm upset about it, that they're cutting a character, if this is true. Or, they can't cut Lady Stoneheart, you must hate Catelyn Stark to be reporting that. It's not a matter of hate, it's a matter of these are the reports I'm receiving about this. Now, thankfully, since I made my rambling 90-minute video, other channels have also talked about this, and have pretty much the same view, that this isn't Benioff and Weiss, and it wouldn't entirely ruin the show, but we would be very, very disappointed if it happened. such as Preston Jacobs of Red Team Review, and also channel Michael Talks About Stuff. His video is short. I'll link them both, but start with his because it's shorter. He had a very good summation of all this, and he name-dropped my report, so I'm paying it forward. That we wouldn't break it, but we disappointed, and to be clear, we are not, if we had a choice, we wouldn't do this. We just don't want to report on what we want to be true. Now, I used the example in my big video of I felt really burned at the point where I was in outright denial with Sansa that this can't be happening, even though we were seeing spy photos. Example he uses is Lady Stoneheart, but that also happened to me too, of when it didn't happen in the Season 3 finale, we kept thinking, oh, they must be saving that for the Season 4 premiere, which they could have done. That isn't actually that unreasonable, but they didn't. And he's remarking on that we can't have denialism like that. So both Preston, Carmine, and Michael all said this, that point is we need to keep our eyes open for it. We have to just stress to people, stop assuming Nettles is in it. Follow reports closely. But, okay, that's all just preamble, the first 10 minutes of this. Point of this video is not all hope is lost. And I said the one thing I'm willing to talk about publicly is that Wake the Dragon made another tweet clarifying I chose my words carefully. I wasn't being coy and saying a certain sheep-eating dragon. She said, no one ever told me that its name in dialogue or in scripts or on props, never saw the name Sheep Stealer, and we can't 100% confirm it's Sheep Stealer, so I just descriptively said it's a dragon eating sheep, and it's wild. She has to track it down. She tracks its droppings to find the cave it's in, or something. And beyond that, I'm just approaching this logically as a branching tree of possibilities. There are two broad possibilities. Either the leaks aren't accurate, or Rhaena claims a dragon, which may or may not be Sheep Stealer or another one. So these split down into further possibilities. The first branch where it isn't accurate. First off, as I said, maybe this is an early idea which they later scrapped when they got a season extension. Like Arwen at Helm's Deep, that we made a condensation if we only went 3 seasons. We never really wanted to do it. Thankfully, we got a season extension, and it's a relic that they moved beyond. The other thing, there's two possibilities there, is it's an intentionally fake leak. A strong possibility is that HBO may have been leaking out fake information to try to flush out spies. Now, I had to explain this to Carmine, Red Team Review, that he didn't know what the term canary trap is. A canary trap is a term used in international espionage for when you do that, where you send out multiple false reports, or you change one line in every one of, if a report has 100 copies, you change one line slightly in each. So if someone reposts it verbatim, you can tell who leaked it. And the movie and TV industry does this a lot, actually. Like I looked up on Wikipedia, there's this famous example of Gene Roddenberry was arguing with the studio about one of the Star Trek movies that he didn't like a change they were making. So they used like one line different in every script, a little change. So when someone leaked out the script, they said, Gene, we know this was you because this is specifically the variant we gave to Gene Roddenberry because you were upset about the script. So look it up. It's a common practice, the canary trap. And this could be very real. And this happened in the Song of Ice and Fire as well. Remember when Tyrion tells each member of the Small Council a slightly different plan for how they're going to marry off Myrcella? That he tells Pycelle, I'm marrying her off to Dorne. To Littlefinger, he says, I'm marrying her off to the Arryns. That then when Cersei confronts him, you're marrying Myrcella off to Dorne. Therefore, he can instantly realize, well, that's what I told Pycelle, he must be Cersei's spy. That's what a canary trap is. They do this all the time with variant scripts. They even have programs for this where they can use a thesaurus program to slightly change words without really affecting the scripts. They have a couple auto-generators for slight variants in scripts so they can know who leaked it. This is why, specifically why, fan analysis people who are gathering all the leak reports, like me, Wake the Dragon, House the Dragon, we try to be careful about verbatim repeating what spies tell us, that we try to talk in vague, broad terms. Because the more specific we get, the easier it'll be for them to track the leak. Like, when I kept talking about a specific script leak we got for some other stuff later in the season, someone actually photocopied a sheet, and I saw it with my own eyes, and there was handwriting on it. I can't just repost that. They know who leaked it. So it's possible that this information is out of date or even intentional misinformation, but let's accept as a given that the report is accurate. Because I'm leaning towards that because of those setup scenes in Season 1 that really made it seem like Rhaena's going to do more than just easily hatch an egg, that she's going to have to work for this. Broadly accurate that Rhaena will get a dragon, there's still a couple of possibilities. That splits into 3 further scenarios. The first, of course, is the assumption is accurate, and this is some sort of truncated condensation with Nettles, and the dragon Rhaena tracks down actually is the sheep stealer. But the sources only said it is a dragon. It happens to be eating sheep. It's not that she's laying sheep out for it to get it used to her like Nettles did. Something else. Of the other wild dragons, there's no way in hell that Rhaena would claim the cannibal, so I'm not even considering that a possibility. But second scenario, that she gets a wild dragon, not sheep stealer, they said there's 3, as in the books. What if they have Rhaena claiming the last of the 3 wild dragons? Grey Ghost, who otherwise really doesn't do much in the narrative because it never gets claimed by a human rider and really just exists to get killed off screen by a different dragon at some point. He never really does anything. Though, of course, in the book, Grey Ghost prefers fish to mutton. Some people are just built differently, but they might be playing it loose to just, how do we know this isn't Grey Ghost? They don't actually call him Sheep Stealer. The third scenario, and this is the one I would prefer, and that might be true, I don't know, but it just, something about it, the spider sense is tingling. Third scenario. What if Rhaena's dragon from the books, named Morning, this pink and black dragon, just hatches really early compared to the books? In the books, it hatches very late in the war. What if just they speed that up to give Rhaena more to do? And then Morning has a growth spurt. That she has a big growth spurt in a single season to the point that she's almost rideable for a light young girl. Like, what's I looked this up, like 150 pounds, like Season 4 Drogon size, that like a 18-year-old light teenager it might be able to carry at short distances because the leak described it as flying a bit, has a growth spurt in a single season. Now, in the books, of course, it takes decades for dragons to grow to a really big size, but they are increasing the size of Moondancer to the point that we see Baela riding her around. In the book, she could ride her, but only short distances. She wasn't big enough to take the war yet. That happens later in the conflict. Also consider another thing. Other leaks, which were completely separate from this, are that consider that Stormcloud hasn't hatched either. That the leak was that we will see Stormcloud hatching and Daemon presenting him to his son Aegon the Younger. But if the Battle of the Gullet is at most Season 3, early mid-Season 3 at most, then it would have to grow to the size where it can carry a 10-year-old awkwardly around its neck within a single TV season. In the books, it's already like a couple of years old. So they're clearly giving a growth spurt to Stormcloud of some kind. They aged up Moondancer, who knows when she hatched, but maybe they're just giving Morning a growth spurt. Not enough to really alter things to make it a war-capable dragon. Just that by the end of Season 2, it'll be the size that Moondancer should have been at the end of Season 1. That when Viserys dies, they says Moondancer is kind of big enough to ride around the castle, but not big enough to go to other islands. But it's rideable, but it's not big enough for war yet. They might have Morning have a growth spurt to do that in a single season. I can see them doing that. And thinking on it, well, they said it was a wild dragon, that she has to go and find it. Maybe Morning escapes confinement at the Eyrie, and they lock the dragon pit after the dragon is bolted. So I think so. Maybe Morning escapes confinement and spends several months running wild, effectively becoming the fourth wild dragon. Think about that. Then later on, Rhaena has to find Morning again to recapture her. And that might be what we're seeing here. That this dragon she has to track down and find as Morning broke out. Because they don't describe her as laying sheep out for it the way Nettles did. This could potentially, I mean, in terms of percentages, I know this is wishful thinking, but there is still the possibility we'll look back on this and laugh. That, oh, that isn't merging with Nettles, like Nettles will actually be coming in the Season 3 premiere, but, oh, we wanted to give Rhaena more to do, so we had Morning hatch early and gave it a growth spurt and made up a subplot of Rhaena having to find it when it broke out of its stable. It could be something as simple as that. Particularly because George R. R. Martin is heavily involved in the creative process now, and he has more control in a way he didn't on the other show, and he said he really likes Nettles. They could still decide to merge them, due to the structural issues which Michael talks about stuff, Preston and Carmine also discuss, that her story meanders around. I would invent more things for her to do, rather than cut her. But just the source material is scant. You need to put some things in there. We can still walk away from this a win. I mean, consider that 6 months ago, there was a deep fear, because they only announced Alan of Hull, Abubakar Salim, that, oh god, are they merging the two Hull brothers into one character? But then we started getting leaks and photos that, no, this is Clinton Liberty as Adam of Hull. They were not merged into one character. So we've already had a merger scare before that turned out to be false. This might just be they invented an adventure with Morning, who hatches early and grows up fast. Then again, we said the same things about they couldn't have cut Lady Stoneheart. No, they can't be merging Sansa with the fake Arya, Jane Poole, Ramsay Bolton stuff. That was with Benioff and Weiss. We are not dealing with Benioff and Weiss. We are dealing with sane people, Ryan Condal's team, who are actually working closely with George R. R. Martin. So, now I feel guilty that I'm teasing you with hope, whereas before I felt guilty that I was crushing hope. I'm just saying nothing is set in stone. There are certain things it was never 100% confirmed that this is merging with Nettles and Sheepstealer. The point of all this is just be on guard, watch every leak. We'll all breathe a sigh of relief if by mid-season 2 Morning breaks out. And we know, okay, that thing by like episode 7 that she has to find Morning or something. There's a couple of possibilities going on here, so just... I'm sorry to have my conclusion is no conclusion. It's just my conclusion is we don't know. Please follow the news closely and make no assumptions. But don't give up on hope.